Welcome back, YouTubers. This is Inland Northwest Native News. I'm your host, Jeff Ferguson.
And I'm your co-host, Margo Hill. Gesquokst.
All right. We hope everybody had a great weekend. Yeah, it was pretty exciting. We have all sorts of things for you today. If this is your first time joining us, we'd like to thank you for tuning in. We'd also like to invite you to like and subscribe our YouTube channel to keep up with all the news and events. We've got some exciting content for today. We got a packed show. We're coming to you live on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, covering 11 tribes of the Inland Northwest, as far east as the Blackfeet in Montana, as far west as the Colvilles, down south to the Umatilla and Warm Springs, and all the way up north to the Kootenays and Kalispels, with the Spokanes, Coeur d'Alenes, Colvilles, and pretty much everybody in between. So anyhow, we hope you had a great weekend, and we are hoping that you'll join us every morning, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, right here at 8 p.m., and then also check out our episodes. So we have some really exciting episodes coming up. One that I've been working on, and I'm going to try and get it out later today. If not, it'll be tomorrow at the very latest. I got a lot of things on my plate right now, so trying to get that busted out. It's from Arley Powwow in Montana. We went out there and shot the Iron Woman jingle contest, and then we got a good interview with the Daviana Madera, who went out there as a rock star. I think she was 6 years old at the time, something like that, and she was out there hanging with the
big girls.
Yeah, the big girls.
Yeah.
Pretty exciting. So,
all of us, Jeff, are really lonesome for powwows. And so, it just your heart aches a little bit, but it's amazing to see the dancers. I was all excited, looking and just seeing the dancers, not just Daviana, but Sophie Turning Robe and Dave Brown Eagle. There's just an amazing feeling about our powwow, and we miss it so much, our powwow trail. And so we're real excited. We're looking forward to that. And hey, Jeff, the Seahawks won, and so here in the Inland Northwest, we're 12th man. We appreciate our Seahawks, so we were excited about that. Lots of good stuff going on, and so we're excited to bring you a little bit of the news.
all right. So yeah, that being said, we got a full plate. I was previewing all my stories here for today, and just wanted to make sure I kept them in order. So hopefully they're still in order. First order of business. I saw this. It was pretty exciting. One real quick thing. We had some exciting news happen over the weekend with the mascot thing. And so it inspired me to get... I have an interview that I did with Charlene Teeters in Santa Fe when we went down there last year. And I did an interview. And she gave just a heartfelt, really raw interview for me, and I'm really excited to share that. I'll have this coming on Wednesday. I'm putting together a segment on her for our morning show, and on Wednesday by then I'll have that episode with the full interview loaded up, and so I'll have a link to that, so you'll be able to check that out. But man, she covers a lot of topics. Man, that woman is just a powerhouse. Amazing.
It was real fun to go down and visit Charlene. She invited me down to speak at IAIA. I talked about Indigenous women and murdered missing Indigenous women. We were down there for the Western Planners Conference. So it was nice to spend some time with Charlene. So I'll be looking forward to that interview as well.
Yeah, it was fun editing that. She was talking about George Flett and George Hill, and they were her colleagues. I thought it was great that she referred to them as her colleagues. Man, what a time! I am envious because she got to know those guys. She got to know George really well. So, anyhow, moving right along, we have a quick shout out. This is going to a shout out to young bronc rider. I just thought this was the coolest thing. It came out a little while ago. This was back in December 3rd, and it was on, let's see, what was that? I think that's Natives. I think it's on their news Facebook page is what I found this. Siddalee Suppah of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs busted out the war paint at the Cowtown Coliseum in Fort Worth, Texas. And I just wanted to share that. I thought that was so cool to wear the war paint for a little young bronc riders. So shout out to Siddalee Suppah. Nice going.
Yeah, on our reservations, we grow up riding horses, riding cows. Stacy Parr and I used to ride cows down at the Thwart Ranch. They had a cow named Daisy. And we used to ride, and my boy cousins were bull riders. And I kind of got punked out and had to ride cows along with other folks in our rough and rowdy days, Keller and Nispelum, whelping at Cayuse Mountain. So, that's the way of the world on the reservation.
Yeah, and don't forget Turtle Lake. So Margo had told me a while back that they were out on Turtle Lake out on the Spokane Res when they were young and riding gas tanks out there. Apparently somebody had, was it?
Oh, you're talking about out towards Benjamin Lake.
Oh, it was a Benjamin Lake.
Yeah, it was Nancy Williams, Melissa Williams, Guy and Stephen Ford. There was a swamp there, and we would ride the old gas tanks around the swamp. I think we're kind of Indian Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn kind of thing.
Yeah, who knew?
Yeah, who knew?
Cows and gas tanks. All right. Okay, so we got a lot in our show today. We're trying to keep it right about 30 minutes. We're going to have a hard time doing that if we keep on rambling. But anyhow, so we had something that happened. I wanted to bring this to your attention. This came out over the weekend. This is families at Airway Heights. Inmates protest over COVID-19 outbreak living conditions. Airway Heights Correction Center has reported 792 cumulative cases of coronavirus among inmates since November 30th, the most of any Washington correctional facility. And this particular story ran on Creme 2 News. I'll be sure to I'll leave links to all the stories in the comment section below. But apparently they had, I'll just keep reading. Airway Heights Correction Center has reported 792 cumulative cases of coronavirus among inmates since November 30th. It's the most of any correctional facility. Conditions on isolation floors are unbearable, according to an inmate who did a phone interview with Creme 2. An inmate at the correctional facility reported that 70 to 80 inmates are forced to use one toilet. Tobin Souther also reported that many inmates haven't been able to take showers or have clean clothes in weeks. In weeks. That's crazy. Souther also said that there's 125 COVID-19 positive inmates being housed in the gym on the floor. That's just unbearable. 125 on the floor there. Did you hear anything about this? Did you?
I'm pretty familiar with. I've been out to the Airway Heights facility. Have some exes if I had to go visit out there. Just joking, not joking. But that particular story was really concerning. But when you have large populations all clumped together, it's really hard to control. That's this virus. It's deadly. It's invisible. And so I can imagine that they have a hard time really controlling that virus.
Yeah, it goes on to state the DOC hasn't confirmed how many toilets are broken or available for inmates to use. Current protocols dictate that patients in medical isolation should be offered a shower starting on the 7th day of isolation. Yeah, that's, if you're supposed to be washing your hands and masking up, but you're not allowed to shower except for once a week.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. That's just unbearable. So hopefully we're going to have to keep an eye on this. Hopefully they'll be able to do something. We do have a native population out there, and I know we got a few people that are out there housed. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But prayers for them and prayers for their families. Those are just that's not something that they should have to be dealing with on top of the things that they're already dealing with. But that kind of leads us right into our next story. This one is actually out of Seattle. Let's see if I can pull this up right here.
So COVID is posing challenges for all of our communities. We just don't know how to deal with it. So whether it's a correctional facility or whether it's our communities, it's a challenge. And
there has still, a lot of times in Indian country, especially in Indian country, they tend to lose sight of the data. They lose sight of segmenting populations, and accurately counting who's who. I know there's been a lot of massive confusion in the data. And one of the things, I'll just read this real quickly, I found. I'll just go right to it. Urban Indian Health Institute. We will not be erased in the data. We demand to be counted. Current standards data collection practices by many federal, state, and local entities effectively omit or misclassify Native people. In the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, this is resulting in gross undercounting of the impact COVID-19 has had in our communities. Urban Indian Health Institute has created a resource with best practices in collecting Native data so you can help advocate for Native people to be counted. It also has guidance for local and state entities on how to collect that data correctly. We will be counted. So I found that at the Urban Indian Health Board's, I think that was on their Twitter. No, I think that was on Instagram. But it might have come up in the Facebook feed. But I'll leave links to that. That's a problem.
Yeah, so Jeff, I do a lot of research with traffic safety, and we consistently, work on getting accurate data across the spectrum. If we're talking about opioids, we have to go directly to the death certificates, and then we can trace those back to our Indian Health Service. But data, if we're talking about issues, sometimes they can't track us, whether it's murdered missing Indigenous women, they get mixed up with Hispanic surnames if we're in the Southwest. And then the archaic, of course, part of the data is the classification. In the olden days, it was classified for N for Negro or something. And so now they're trying to work through the classifications for Native American. And so it's a challenge to get our individuals documented, but usually it's our own Indian Health Service that helps the most.
And it's so vitally important for Native communities because they're always so underfunded on everything: education, healthcare, law enforcement, you name it. There's so much underfunding. It's too important. There was a big movement for the census to get that thing going. But to give you just a real quick statistic from the Urban Indian Health Institute, I'll cut right to this real quick so you can see what I'm reading. The rates of COVID-19 deaths for American Indians and Alaskan Natives aged 20 to 29 is 10.5 times higher compared to non-Hispanic whites. Wow. 10.5 times. 10.5 times. That's crazy. And if you haven't seen it, some real good examples are both the Pine Ridge Reservation and the Navajo Res. They have had huge outbreaks. Throughout the Inland Northwest, we've been pretty fortunate that it hasn't been as drastic as some places, but it's so devastating for us. We have to take all of these so seriously. We already have had a massive impact on our elders. We don't have nearly the elder population that non-natives have, and it's because of things like relocation and boarding schools and uranium mines and just all of these different things, sterilization. All of these different things kept us from reaching those ripe old ages that you see so many non-natives that reach. What did you say? I think you told me the statistic of the average lifespan of a native. Were you the one that gave that to me?
I don't think so. But our lives are shortened, and because of a whole social risk indicators and different things that serves really challenging for our folks. But we don't live in isolation. We are communal people, and so it's natural to understand that it would be we're super spreaders in some cases because we have a hard time isolating. We don't live in isolation. Jeff, one story that I wanted to mention is right here in the Spokesman Review. They just yesterday announced that they have funding for a racial equity reporter, and how it became a reality. I admire journalists, and they do a lot of good work for our community. And so the Spokesman Review was talking about getting funding for a full-time reporter in this region. And, of course, they'll cover other stories, but we want to focus on racial equity issues. And, of course, on the flip side of that, we have friends, shout out to Irv Schuler, who says, why do we have to go out and find funding for reporters? Why isn't that part of the regular staff? Non-natives don't necessarily have to go find funding for staff reporters. But I got to say, I really admire journalists, especially in these crazy times where you don't know which news that is truthful. And so having reporters and trained journalists, they go check their sources 1, 2, 3 times before they run a story. And we want to be able to rely on some of those stories. So that was a recent story that I was looking at.
Yeah, that's just, and it is a matter. It's a matter of trying to be truthful and remain truthful. The inaccurate data, the inaccurate reporting, all that really adds up, and it makes a difference in people's lives, how they react to certain things that you hear. When you hear that there's, here's a good example. If you hear that there's a COVID outbreak on your res, but it's just rumor, people overreact. People go out and they do all sorts of things. On the other side of that, if you don't have somebody out there reporting and telling you, this is what's happening, it's really important. So for those of you that don't know, give you a little background on myself, a little bit background on Margo here. I have a degree in photography. That's where I started kind of getting interested in editorial work. I got my 2-year degree from Spokane Falls Community College. Then I went on and got a bachelor's in communications from Whitworth University. And in my communications program, that was one of the things that we really studied. You have to, cite your sources. And it's so important because we can have people that overreact or underreact or don't react at all if you're trying to decide if this is misinformation. So here at Inland Northwest Native News, it's a real big priority for us to just try to rely on news media sources that have a good reputation. It's easy to fall into all the muck that's online. Mm-hmm. To weed through it. I really try to weed through as much as I can, and we try to stay away from mainstream media sources. Unfortunately, because we have such a lack of representation in Indian country, sometimes we end up going to mainstream media sources, but they're a lot of times the only ones who cover that stuff. And so Margo here, she has an extensive background, and both of us are very dedicated to research. Can you talk a little bit about your background, a little bit about the research that you do, because you're constantly writing, you're constantly reading stuff. It's just your never-ending source of knowledge. It's amazing.
Right. So I first served as the attorney for my tribe for over 10 years, and worked on all kinds of general court matters, litigation in federal court for the water master, water adjudication, and then also environmental issues, contract issues, lots of work in gaming. I continue to serve on the Colville Tribal Gaming Commission. Now my focus at the university, I'm a professor at Eastern Washington University, and for the past 5-7 years I've been doing research on transportation, tribal traffic safety, working to reduce fatalities in Indian country. So just a lot of work. And then I teach classes, federal Indian law, tribal planning, tribal governance. So there's a lot of work that I do within those realms that kind of contribute to our show.
Yeah, and it's an honor to have you here because you're a wealth of knowledge and you're so dedicated to getting it right. I know you really are dedicated to that. So my hands are raised to you. As they say on the coast. So moving right along. That being said, we're going to go to this story that I had missed. This was back in, I think this first ran in mid-March, and I'm going to share this with you real quick. Native American Health Center asked for COVID-19 supplies. It got body bags instead. In mid-March, as the Seattle region grappled with the coronavirus outbreak, a community health center caring for the area's Native American population made an urgent request to the county, state, and federal health agencies, please send medical supplies. What it received almost 3 weeks later. The staff members were stunned. My team turned ghost white, said Esther Lucero, Chief Executive Officer of the Seattle Indian Health Board. We asked for tests, and they sent us body bags. The Health Board Center, serving about 6,000 people a year in Seattle and King County, still has the package, which is filled with zippered white bags and beige tags that read, attach to tow. Now that's just, when we talk about miscounting, it's funny because it's not funny. That those kind of things happen not just with this, but we see all sorts of things like this. I mean, who's going to send body bags to somebody who's asking for tests? We want tests and masks and PPEs and, oh, here you go. Here's body bags.
Yeah, because those Indians clearly don't want to, be healthy and be safe. Let's just send them body bags. That's outrageous.
So that happened a while back, and that was something that was I was so in awe that even happened. And what it did is it inspired me to, it not inspired me, it inspired this gal here, Abigail Echohawk, and she's just an amazing person. If you aren't familiar with Abigail, she responded with this, and trying to find it. I know I had a little bit on it. She turned around and made. We can hardly see this. She turned around and made. Maybe I can do it here.
So we know Abigail from the Seattle Urban Indian Health Center. She's been a leading force on murdered, missing Indigenous women. They completed the report. And so Abigail is a voice for Indian country. We've seen her, at the affiliated tribes and Northwest Indians. And so I'm not surprised. Abigail's pretty amazing.
So what she did is she turned around and took these body bags, and she took the tags, and she had made a ribbon dress out of them in response to their, I don't know what you call it, insincerity, inappropriateness, in
their screw up,
incompetence. I don't know what you want to call it. I guess that's it. But it was just so offensive. She turned around and made that dress out of it. But I just thought it was amazing. I thought it was something that would be cool to share with you guys. When we see things like that happen, it's hard to watch. So and not do anything. I'm sure she was. My blood would be boiling if they had sent that to my organization. And here you are trying to help your people, and they're like, well, here, these will help. Yeah, right. So anyhow,
not an uncommon response.
Not an uncommon
to
response.
Indian country. But Indian country, we're out there fighting. We have tribal leaders that are working to enforce our treaties, working to protect our people. They're being creative. Recently, we had a tribe, the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribe, was working to file a lawsuit. In many of our treaties, we have a clause called the Bad Man Clause. So the Cheyenne and Arapaho filed a lawsuit and sued the United States for violation of the Bad Men Clause because of opioids. The Bad Men's Clause under our treaties say that if there is bad actors in Indian country and the United States is on notice, then they have to work to get those bad men out of Indian country. So here we're talking about the pharmaceutical companies, and the United States must cause the offender to be arrested. So we're talking about the manufacture of opioids. Unfortunately, this particular claim with the Cheyenne Arapaho, it was dismissed. But we're doing everything we can in Indian country to protect our people. We have tribes that are working on building treatment facilities and providing good treatment opportunities. But we also have law enforcement that are trying to root out some of these drug addictions and evils in our community.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's just it can be. It seems like it could be overwhelming if you just sit and focus on that kind of thing. But it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy to find things like that. So we had some responses to some of the stuff we ran. We had a response from, Morrison Flett. Thanks for tuning in. We also had Danielle Robinson and Irv Schlufer. So Danielle says to us, do we know if the impacts are higher? Now, this is going back to the COVID. Do we know if the impacts are higher due to genetics or cultural gathering? Do we know that? That's a great question.
So I would say partially, folks that are more susceptible to COVID complications are folks with asthma, predetermined diseases. If they already have issues, that causes their response to COVID to be more complicated, more serious. If they've had pneumonia repeatedly, and some of that is genetics. We as Native people have more issues with diabetes and things like that. So it's possibly that some of these issues are increase because of our genetics.
So in addition to that, one of the things is when you start looking. So I heard about, and it's not just on reservations, but it's kind of one of those things where if you have. So first of all, when we're looking at the distribution of vaccines, we have to look at when. Well, if it were me, is my res going to have the facilities to store that? Are they going to have the ability to take everybody and line them all up and keep them at a certain distance? Are they going to have enough PPEs for everybody? They're going to be enough masks? Is there going to be enough funding? How long is this going to last? It's all of these factors over and over and over again that compile on top of each other that add to all of this. And so to answer that question, I think that's a good answer. I think that's something, though, that I'd like to look into a little bit more to see what that, because 10 times, I think a lot of that, too, has to do with, well, here's a good example. The distribution of the vaccine. We are on, day 4, day 5, since they announced in the UK. Yesterday, they had vaccines land in the United States, and they're starting to distribute them to hospitals. But how long is it going to be before it gets to IHS clinics? When we get to the native population that are on the front lines, our first responders and people of that nature, how long is it going to be before they get around to getting out to the reservations, to distribute to all the reservations? So there's so many of them that are rural. Not only is it a communication factor, it's a logistics factor of getting stuff out, getting not just the vaccines, but PPEs out there. I have a friend on Pine Ridge, and I sent a package down there, and they returned it undeliverable. And it's like, it's the only house out on that road. How can you, and you're paying FedEx or UPS or whatever to get out there. And the people that run them, unless they're new, they know those routes. The house has been there for 80 years. It's not going anywhere. It's that kind of thing. I don't know. Like I said, it compiles. So
it's frustrating. Our Indian Health Service clinics are working really hard. There's progressive tribes like the Lummi tribe who is already set to have some vaccinations, so we'll have to follow that. But all tribes are facing these challenging times when we have rural communities and we just don't have the refrigeration. The temperature of these vaccinations are required a very cold temperature. There was one gentleman that was selling dry ice that he's overwhelmed because dry ice will help keep that vaccination at that deep cold that they need to. So there's a lot of challenges for not just our communities but also the mainstream America.
So just to give you a real quick, over the summer, I like to get dry ice. It lasts a long time, when you go out to the river or whatever. But I stopped by 3 times. I stopped to get dry ice, and we're like sold out all summer.
Oh wow!
If they're sold out all summer for just recreational use, now everybody needs dry ice.
Right.
Gosh, it's crazy. We're gonna have to keep an eye on that, and I'll check up. I'll keep counting on that. But we need to keep moving right along. We have another story here. This one is from the Warm Springs tribe. This has actually come off the Columbia River Keeper Facebook page, and it's a Water is Life. There's a, let's see if I can pull this up real quickly. I have a short, oh gosh.
So Jeff, we're pretty familiar with the Warm Springs water situation. This past summer, Jeff and I have lots of partnerships and activities. We rallied and we got the surrounding tribes to help donate water. The Warm Springs tribe, and I've got some cousins down on the Warm Spring Reservation, really struggle with access to water, a basic need. And so we got donations from the local tribes, the Coeur d'Alene tribe, the Kalispell tribe, the Spokane tribe, and they helped get water. And then, of course, you and Jacob Johns ran it down there. But they continue to have these basic issues of getting infrastructure for their water facilities.
And so I wanted to share this quick video with you. It's just a couple minutes long, but we're going to go to this. This was done really well. It was done by Karina Miller, who was running for office here in this last election. She's a strong Native woman who has just been doing wonderful things, and I wish her the best of luck. But I want to share with you because they did such a good job, and this will explain it. We got the notification. We ran down 20,000 bottles of water to get to them down there, and that just they had some water there, but it's nowhere near what they need. Everybody's been on boil alert for a long time, and so I'm going to share this video with you real quick, and it tells the story a lot better in just a couple minutes. So we'll cut to that. Let's see, just like that.
Access to clean water is directly related to having an adequate standard of living and overall health. Today in my community of Warm Springs, over 60% of the people do not have access to clean and safe running water for personal and domestic use. The system that delivers water throughout the community has mainline breaks, and as a result, there's low or no pressure in the system, and everyone has to boil water. While water distribution centers are available in the community, my family are challenged to follow CDC guidelines for hand washing to protect themselves from COVID. Low pressure in the system means people cannot shower, wash dishes, do laundry, or provide water to livestock and animals. This is why we need your help. To fix our entire water infrastructure system, it will cost over $200 million. You can donate directly to the MRG Foundation, our partner in raising funds to address critical issues. Visit them at mrgfoundation.org. Chush, or water, is life. It is central to my people and our cultural lifeways. We pray with it and for it. It flows through our bodies as it flows through the lands. Like you, we can't live without it.
Jeff, holy smokes. Just seeing those images and hearing Karina, that really brings it home. The basic necessities. Just a reminder, we didn't ask to be kind of pushed out into these no-man lands. We had thriving communities and thriving economies, and it's not in the geographic locations where our reservations were placed. And so looking at that water issue and the low pressure for the Warm Springs people, that's really heart-wrenching.
Yeah, and so that was an awesome, amazing job by Karina Miller to produce that. It turned out great. If I can't even imagine if everybody on all the reservations, they had people like Karina out there pushing to bring to light, the issues that Indians face on a daily basis. These guys are boiling their water, and they're having issues just to be able to shower, just to be able to do everyday things. And here we are in 2020 and in the midst of a pandemic, and they don't have water that they can wash their hands with. It's got to be just challenging. So, again, it's stacked on top of each other.
Yeah, when you and Jacob ran water down to the Warm Springs, we asked questions. What's the future outlook? How are the Warm Springs people going to get this fixed? I was really concerned because as I mentioned, I have cousins down there, Sabrina and Willette and Hermie Boyd. and it's really concerning. And when we talked to Warm Springs folks that were on the front line, they said, yes, there is legislation in the works to help improve the infrastructure, but it wouldn't be till 2021. Till, even some of that infrastructure would be getting funding, or that it would go to the legislature to get bills passed to fix that water. And so you have folks that don't have pressure for water just to wash their hands and cook and shower. I can't imagine what a challenging notion that would be. Jeff, we'll have to stay on top of that and make sure we continue to find out. But look at doing donations or whatever we can in Indian country to support the Warm Springs people.
Yeah, it's ongoing. It's something that's ongoing. So I have a real quick one that I'm trying to pull up real quick. I know we're running behind on time.
So I have two things, Jeff. I'll go ahead and one, I wanted to mention that the United States Supreme Court accepted cert for the Yakima Nation, the Confederated Tribes of the Bands of Yakima Nation. The Yakima Nation has had a couple of cases go up to the Supreme Court. Recently, last year, they had Cougar Den, which was a fuel tax case in which the United States Supreme Court actually found in favor of the Yakima Nation and Cougar Den that they didn't have to pay fuel tax because under their 1855 treaty, they had actually negotiated the right to mobility, to move goods to trade without encumbrances. So there shouldn't be a fuel tax upon those folks when they're trying to bring fuel to their people and to different businesses, bringing the fuel into the Yakima Nation. So this case is regarding Public Law 280. PL 280 was legislation paternalistic that said the state governments would have authority in Indian country. Of course, tribes are sovereign nations, and we are in a partnership with the federal government. So typically, it's only federal laws that apply to Indian country. The Growth Management Act and other state laws don't apply in Indian country. So the Yakima Nation retroceded. They took back jurisdiction in Indian country, and there's kind of been this push back and forth with the state of Washington, Washington State Patrol on the Yakima Reservation. So we may get some answers from the United States Supreme Court. So we'll be looking for that. Again, you can look at Turtle Talk, has some of their documents and has some of the briefs, and you can and see the petition. But the United States Supreme Court accepted cert, and so we'll be hearing on that case coming down soon.
All right. We'll look forward to keeping up with that. Thank you for that in-depth story. Wow. So moving right along, we have a story out of Portland. This is an Indian Country Today story. This ran on their Facebook page. The painful history of Portland's Red House, a developer who bought a house in Portland, Oregon that became the center of an anti-eviction protest, is reportedly in negotiations to sell the house back to its former black and indigenous owners. If all goes as planned, William and Julie Kinney, he is black, she is Upper Skagit, would return to the home that had been in their family for 65 years. Some 5,400 donors who contributed more than $286,000 by December 11th, surpassing the goal of $250,000 towards the repurchase of the home. So, yeah, that's kind of crazy. What an inspiring story. You had read up on this. I'm just going to go ahead and you had read up on this a little bit.
Yeah, so a number of our urban Indians are, facing eviction. There's been some laws that required the stay of eviction, but here's a case where an Upper Skagit tribal member and her African-American husband, were getting evicted. They had lived there for 65 years, and now, they're struggling because of COVID or other reasons, and a developer moves in, and so it's the people came to action, and so it's nice to know that they're not going to be homeless.
Yeah, and the NAACP stepped up down there, and Mayor Ted Wheeler, he stepped up. That and it takes a lot of times these things are so complicated. It takes a community to get them done. But that's kind of a neat story. We'll leave the link in the description below. Moving right along, I have a story here, and we've been following Deb Haaland. So Deb Haaland has been. Let's see if I pull this up.
Of course, Deborah Haaland is a Pueblo, and she is a U.S. Congresswoman, and we're real proud of the work she's doing across the nation. Jeff's had the opportunity to visit with her in Portland with affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, and she's just a powerful force across Indian country, making legislative things happen for our own tribal communities.
So I want to share this with you real quick. Deb Haaland. Tribes want Deb Haaland for Interior Secretary. Some Biden advisors are trying to thwart her. So as we know, there's always going to be blowback. But this article that out of the Huffington Post says, for weeks, leaders of the Native American tribes all over the country have been urging President-elect Joe Biden to pick Republican Deb Haaland out of New Mexico to do his interior to be his Interior Secretary. So have dozens of members of Congress, including Republicans. But for some reason, some of Biden's advisors have begun anonymously planting the idea in the news stories that the Native American Congresswoman who chairs a House subcommittee with oversight of the Interior Department is not qualified. What's also puzzling is that these sources say a better candidate is a lesser-known man who is also Native, Michael Connor, despite dozens of tribal leaders telling Biden publicly and privately that they back Haaland. What they go on to state, there's a quote in here, but her lack of policy experience worries some Biden advisors who have suggested another Native American candidate, Michael Connor, a Deputy Interior Secretary in the Obama administration, whose experience is unquestioned, reads a New York Times piece in late November. But many Biden's advisors fear that she lacks the experience to manage the sprawling, complex agency, reads a second piece in the New York Times on Thursday. So we're going to leave the links on that. That's crazy. What do you think about that? They're claiming she's underqualified. How many people in this current administration are underqualified to serve in how many different capacities? And we've had such turnover. It's hard to even talk on.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Clearly, Deborah Haaland has made her bones and is an effective leader serving in the U.S. Congress. You know, I've had the opportunity to be on panels, and she is very thoughtful and engaging. She's smart, and she knows what she's talking about. But the other side of that, Jeff, I will say, is that we also need her in Congress. So it's hard when we have such few Native delegation, representing us across the nation, to give her up to even, Secretary of Interior. That is a super important position. But we almost, then we lose a voice. Deborah Haaland was instrumental in bringing the Not Invisible Act, in addition to Savannah's Act for murdered missing Indigenous women. So to not have her in the United States Congress is a real scary thing as well.
It is. And, I had the opportunity to meet her down in Portland. She came out to AT&I, shout out to AT&I, Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians, their annual convention down there in Portland. She came out and spoke, and wow, what an amazing experience that was. I was there to shoot it, and I heard that she was coming, but every once in a while I'll meet somebody that has just such an amazing presence. Just even you could feel the vibes from everybody, the positivity level in the room, even before it, just as she was entering the room, just everything was elevated. And to hear her listen to everybody to hear her speak and listen to everybody with her heart, and to know, that she is working from the right place, and not like so many other politicians that I've met and shot and been introduced to. It just, she was sincerely there, and she was all there. She was like, even after she stopped, she stayed and talked to everybody that wanted to talk to her. Well, that was really neat.
Yeah, she's a real person. She got her bachelor's degree, and then 4 days later gave birth to a child. She earned her Juris Doctorate, her law degree from University of New Mexico. Shout out to University of New Mexico Law School. Sam Deloria was there for a lot of years, and Heidi and all the folks down at the Pre-Law Institute. Deborah Haaland is just an amazing woman. And so we hold her up and we say prayers for her.
Yeah, and so it's not just us saying prayers for her. That, man, tribes, they answered back. They answered back with this. This came out in Indian Country Today. Internet declares Deb for Interior Week. I thought this was great. So they went ahead and they did all of these different things. They made a bunch of memes. This one of Mariah Carey, all I want for Christmas is Deb Haaland for Interior Secretary.
All right.
Thought that was great. This one, Deb Hall leading the Avengers.
All right.
That was pretty cool. And then, of course, this other one, awfully cute. Me with my offering to the Creator for Deb being appointed as Secretary of Interior. I thought that was just, I got a kick out of that. So anyhow, tribes aren't sitting by idle, letting them bash her, but lifting her up, and she's got the support of Indian people. It'll be I can't imagine why you would keep a Native out of that position.
Yep, she has a Juris Doctorate, an attorney. Showed that she made her bones and she can do the work. So that's getting almost our time, Jeff.
We have a couple real quick stories I want to share with you. I know, and I'm just going to quickly go over this one. Just some kind of feel-good stuff that is really exciting. This one come up on Indian Country Today. 40 plus holiday gift ideas that are indigenous. And so we'll leave the links to this, give you some quick examples of what they have. There are beyond buckskin. We got stuff from 8th Generation, Native Northwest, Planet Alaska, Red Cloud Indian School, and their Heritage Center for the marketplace stuff. Then apparel, again, beyond buckskin's in there. I'm going to move right along.
I do have one gift suggestion. They're There by Tommy Orange. I really enjoyed reading this book. It really gives the tribal perspective. So I just wanted to give a shout out to Native author Tommy Orange. He was here this past year. So if you're looking for gifts, this definitely has a tribal voice. Throughout the book, he's talking about not only urban Indians and our experience living in the cities, but he talks about Indian concepts like Indian names. He said one of his characters says, we had our own way of naming before white people came over and spread all those dad names around in order to keep the power with the dads. So just fun Indian insight. So check out Tommy Orange's there. And for your Christmas list, support those Native authors.
Yeah. So we have stickers by Stephen Paul Judd listed on this. I'll leave the links in the comment section below. There's Vision Maker Media Films, Cheekbone Beauty Products, Prados Beauty, a bunch of different things. But so the last story that I have, this is probably saving the best for last. Really excited to share this one. This is some good 2020 news. This one coming off of the Northwest. Oh gosh, what was this one? The Northwest. I'll leave the links in the comment section below. I'm just going to read through this really quickly. It's for the first time more than 80 years, salmon have spawned above the Grand Coulee Dam. It's the beginning of a study that the Confederated Tribes, the Colville Reservation, bringing back salmon to the Upper Columbia. This fall, Colville research scientist Casey Baldwin walked up and down the Sampoil. I always say that wrong. I want to say Sampoil, but it's Sampoil River, upstream from the dam, searching for salmons, reds. In August, the tribal fisheries manager had released 100 fish with pit tags, passive integrated transponders to track the salmon. They'd hope to see if the fish survived and spawned. You don't really get a feel for the spawning habitat until you walk up and down the stream. I was really impressed with the pools and the large woody debris and the quality of the potential spawning gravel. That's in the Sampoel, Baldwin says. He'd seen the Excel spreadsheets and the data about the salmon, but seeing it with his own eyes proved a point. This river's really got potential to support a salmon run, he says. After walking the river and flying drones along its banks, the team found 36 salmon redds of nests, all within 6 miles of the release. So they released 100, and now they have 36. That's really cool. Those are really good.
Great odds.
Fish have been a way of finding the right habitat, and using it when given the chance, Baldwin says. I thought that was just an amazing story. I wanted to pull that out. We had a couple different things. Here's a quick photo. Salmon redds in their nests. They actually have photographs of these salmon, and we had a Colville gal out there, Crystal. She's out there, and this was from her when she was putting in back in August of 2019. So we wanted to say a shout out to Crystal. And also, good job to UCUT. Good job to the Colville tribes. Everybody that had a part in that. It's amazing to have that many back. Man, that's just in 80 years. It's heart-wrenching. We had put out hundreds before, and without the whoosh technology, we're only getting a few out of 100. Now we have 36 out of 100 come back. That's awesome.
Yeah, we have female native biologists, Jeanette Finley, shout out at the Colville tribe. All of our folks are working hard to bring those salmon back. And, that story just, it touches my heart. Yesterday I had one of my native students pull up in our driveway and bring my family and I a salmon. Jeff, you seen that big Chinook salmon, and it was beautiful. And so, shout out to our fishermen and our scientists who are doing everything to bring those salmon home. It's part of our traditional native diet. I just when tribal students gift their professors a big salmon, it's pretty gorgeous. So shout out to Adam Amundsen. Thank you. My family loves the salmon, and we'll be enjoying that.
All right. So that being said, I think that's all I have.
I have one last announcement. Tonight at the Spokane City Council, they are having a hearing for the name change of Fort George Wright to Wistox Way, honoring women warriors then and now. So if you can, please be sure and visit the Spokane City Council's website. The hearing, you need to sign in 5 to 6 if you'd like to speak and provide a 3-minute testimony. But the hearing with the Spokane City Council is tonight at 6 p.m. So please join us.
Right. So thank you once again for joining us. We'll be back on Wednesday, 8 a.m. and I'll be getting up that video on Arlie Powwow, the jingle dress dancers, and then be working on Charlene Teeters. So I'll put the links up later for Arlie, and then I'll have links for Charlene Teeters on Wednesday. So definitely looking forward to that. Let's see if I can get this. That being said,
episode 13. Go check out Arlie Powwow. It rocks. I got a little preview.
She Uhoy.
She Uhoy.